justice? No justice? What do we want? What do we want? What do we want? When do we want it? When do we want it? When do we want it? Help the person next to you and let them know you're glad that they're an African. Let me, from the outset, acknowledge the presence of the woman who made this all possible tonight. I want everybody to give her a round of applause. Hopefully she will stand. The mother of Stokely Carmichael. Nobody in here courting tonight. Certainly we're all very pleased to have Kwame Ture's mother with us this evening. And certainly our presence here tonight simply confirms what she already knows, and that is the greatness of her son and how important already he has been to our struggle here in North America and throughout the African diaspora. It is most fitting that Kwame Ture is here this Wednesday night, coming in the aftermath of a great meeting here last Wednesday night. Many of us who was here on that particular evening could only marvel at the unity and solidarity of African people. The number of people who came on stage and spoke to us ranged all the way from the most diehard integrationists to the most diehard revolutionary. Hebrew Israelites, Muslims, Christians, atheists, Buddhists, Hindus, etc., and etc. And I think that the real story of last week's meeting was the fact that black people, regardless of whatever their political or religious persuasions are ready to come together. And certainly your presence last weekend mandated that unity. I think that when last week was being structured, what really came to mind is that unity has a process. It's not just simply African people meeting in a certain physical space. It is more than that. And what ran through the entire evening was that the slave theater last week was a neutral zone. That's very important, because when you have people of various political persuasions, no one organization should call for a meeting of people who have struggled on behalf of African people, because it would denigrate the organizations in which they represent. And therefore, the rationale last week was that people who have struggled on our behalf are in fact heads of state. And when you bring heads of states together, you do that in a neutral environment. Israel and the PLO are not negotiating in Jerusalem, they are negotiating in Switzerland. You can't bring people together without a process of unity. And that was so clearly demonstrated last week. What is more important is that this process is continuing to evolve. Last Wednesday was only the beginning. This is not something that is being played out in the news media. That's important. Most of the summits, the leadership summits that have happened in our community, have first been given to the white media first. And then black people have met. This meeting that was called last week was not in the white media at all, nor was the white media invited. And what is significant, about that is that there is an African drum in our community that is totally unattached to the white media, that we have drifted away from. Many of us now believe that in order for anything to be a success, we got to send it to the white newspapers and the white TV station and white radio station to make it legitimate. The fact of the matter is that black people don't show up under those circumstances. Marcus Garvey brought hundreds of thousands of people together and then used not one white radio station, or one white newspaper, or one white television, because there wasn't in existence at that time. Black people do not need to rely on the white media to come together. The fact of the matter is that the largest gathering so far of a united people happened last week, where people of all different persuasions came together, no one having any special privileges over somebody else, and black people were able to sit here and deal with our issues because white folks wasn't involved. Black people can do great things without the presence of white folks. There are many debates now that are going on over the question of whether white folks should be allowed in black meetings. Now, most groups in our community tolerate that. I take a different tack. And so, within 48 hours after Mr. Louis Farrakhan was last here, I was looking at the television set and I saw Norman Siegel of the New York Civil Liberties Union and this white woman, or white witch, with the Jewish Action Alliance trying to break into the armory. They should have allowed them to break in and then arrested them. That's what should have made a citizen arrest and took them to the local precinct. That's what should have happened. I would have let them break in first. Then I would put them in handcuffs and march them straight through Harlem in handcuffs. But since that was not done, I got a phone call as I was watching Norman Siegel talk about the fact he was getting ready to bring a lawsuit against the Nation of Islam. Phone call from Utrice Lee. And Utrice was asking me at that particular time, would I appear on one of her programs on WBAI? As many of you know, she comes on every Tuesday, 4:30. That's 99.5 FM. That's a story in itself. We won't get into that tonight. But anyway, I said, sure, I'll be glad to come on, even though I haven't been on WBAI in many years. I said, I'll be glad to come on because you were asking me to. And she said, well, what kind of format would you like to participate in? And I said, well, you know, what would interest me, Utrice? I would like to debate Norman Siegel on the air. On the question of whether whites have a constitutional right to break into black meetings. And I asked her to schedule Siegel as quickly as possible, which should have been last night or last evening. But as many of you know, white folks are slow studies, so he needed time to get ready for this act. I'm ready already. Because I'm telling him now I'm going to whip him from one side of the studio to the other. I'm ready already on my part. But this cracker got to read some constitutional law and some other law to get ready for it. But this is going to take place at 3 p.m. on February 22nd. Uh-oh. Well, if it's George Washington's birthday, Dr. Feld, I'm going to take him your book. Should African people celebrate George Washington's birthday? I'm going to hand that to him from the beginning. But it is very significant for us to deal with this whole question of black people allowing white folks in their meetings. And it needs to be discussed and debated. See, I don't have a fight with black folks. I like to take white folks head on. I wake up in the morning looking at white folks. I don't deal with black folks. I don't have no quarrel with black folks. Any cracker looking for a fight, send him by my house first. If he's looking for a fight. So that is going to happen on the 22nd. But let me say something very quickly about leadership. In order for black people to be united, as I said just a moment ago, it's more than occupying the same stage. That's not unity. We've seen that. Many times people come together, take a photograph, everybody said that was great. Well, that's not unity. That's just black folks sharing a physical space. In order to be united, regardless of what your political or religious persuasion is, you got to be able to agree on one point in order for people to be united. If you can't agree on one thing, you can't unite. When I look at Negro leaders attacking Dr. Khalid Abdullah Muhammad in the white media because white folks own them, let's be very clear about it. Negroes are not outraged by what Dr. Muhammad said because most, if not all, of what Dr. Muhammad said is true. Most, if not all, of what he said is true. And even if it were all lies, even if it was all lies, after 400 years of oppression in America, he got a right to say it. Even with all lies. See, these crackers got these soft Negroes on television at night. They don't want to get somebody on who don't care. like I don't. They learned by now that I don't cherish nothing that they own. Nothing. I don't want their awards. I don't want nothing they have. I'm just as dangerous as a runaway slave. I don't belong on nobody's plantation. And that's a dangerous Negro to be dealing with. Somebody who's not owned by anybody. Running around with no white man's brand on his behind. That's dangerous. You can say what you want to when you get in that situation. Say exactly what you please. White folks don't want y'all to hear it. The fact of the matter is that it is a downright disgrace for anybody to be taking Dr. Muhammad to task. There's no justification for it. None whatsoever. On any grounds. You cannot, on one hand, march in the South for civil rights and then come to New York and deny Dr. Muhammad his civil rights. Freedom of speech, you can't do that. You can't do that. There's no justification for that. It's totally inconsistent for anybody to be able to do that. But what is very important here is that that issue, which has plagued our people for 400 years in this country, is an ethical issue. That's an ethical issue. The reason why this has continued to be a problem in our community is because we have no code of ethics in our community to live by. That's why this is a problem. We have no code of ethics. Under any code of ethics that we make people agree to, that would be prohibited. And nobody, I don't care who you are, whether you're Baptist or Muslim or Hebrew Israelite or whatever you are, Pan-Africanist, integration, whatever, everybody got to at least say in public that they're ethical and believe in ethics. So if we are going to unite black people around anything, we got to first unite them around ethics. Who among us can say that we will not unite around ethics? And then we must have some means of enforcing our code of ethics. Black people got to enforce their code. Negroes sign onto the code, and we must have some mechanism in place to enforce our code of ethics against anybody who violates that rule, including Jesse Jackson. This is the process of unity. This is the process of unity. So we have began to write everybody in this town, and we began to start putting together a code of ethics for everybody in this town to comply with. A code of ethics is necessary for a lot of reasons. There are Negroes who are going downtown engaging in secret meeting with the Giuliani administration, and we don't know about it. Making deals on our behalf when they are being paid through grants from that same city administration. That's a conflict of interest. Any Negro who claims to speak on your behalf should disclose financially who is sponsoring him or her. This is the process of unity. You just can't call people together. People got to agree on at least one point. And black folks need to be ethical. If we were just ethical alone, we could solve most of our problems. If we were just ethical, that's all. Just clean up our character. If Jesse Jackson would just clean up his character, we'll be that far ahead. How can the Congressional Black Caucus say they are down with the Nation of Islam and they are financed by Zionists? That's the real deal. You don't think they put 39 Negroes in Congress for nothing, do you? Politics is not anything if you reduce it to prostitution. And that's what has happened in our community. There's no politicians in our community, there are prostitutes in our community. People talk about our politicians. You don't have no politicians. You got streetwalkers. In our community, let's be real. Bad character. Every last one of them. You know that. Somebody got to start telling the truth in New York. Somebody got to start telling the truth. Just the truth alone. We're getting worse and worse at it. I want to say one final point on this and I'm through. I was very disturbed this morning after listening to Brother Kwame on and then Brother Tisdale out of Jackson, Mississippi. Lady called up RL and suggested to Dr. Shields that he should start listening to Bob Law at night. Now, the problem I have with that is this. I know another radio station where everybody on that station ought to be listening to Bob Law. I know another station where certain people cannot come on. Now, if we're going to start attacking people, then we ought to at least start with those people who need the medicine most. If we're going to start attacking people. The fact of the matter is that anybody that you program to get on WWRL gets on. You can't say that for some other station in this town. All right, you know that. And that's not a matter of disliking anybody. That's the truth. Certain people can't go on. So why would you start attacking a man who is making some mistakes and not saying anything about somebody who ain't doing nothing? At least the man is making an effort. Why would you try to attack somebody who's trying when somebody who ain't doing nothing? Now, y'all can't say that like this because y'all got I can say this. See, I know y'all can't say this, so tell them I said it. Well, I'm not looking for friends in New York, so I can say this. I know some of y'all got problems. I don't have those problems. I'm not owned by anybody. Nor am I trying to be the friend of anybody. So I can tell the truth. And anybody that think I'm lying can come here and debate the point. I've said that many times. Anybody think that I'm lying, you get equal time of it. This is not a microphone that belongs to any one person. You can debate the issue anytime. People at those radio stations don't like it, they can come in and debate it. Which is exactly what I am proposing. In March, we're going to set aside one night for us to invite all of our radio personalities out to the Slave Theater, for us to deal with the future of black talk radio in New York. And people have a right to say whatever they please. I won't be monitoring this program. I won't be the moderator. If people want to come here and attack me or whoever, they can do that. But why? One is because what really bothered me about this woman, and I have cautioned people here even in terms of my case, is that we should not be attacking blacks. I don't care whether it's WLIB, WWRL, or KISS on radio. We shouldn't do that. Even if we have differences with them. We can do it here, but we should not do it somewhere else. We should not use the airwaves to attack any person. So even though I may have some differences with anybody, I am not going to give white folks the luxury of using my dissent as a device to take somebody out. That's what's significant. If you got a problem with any of these people, and I have, do like I do. Write a letter to them. Write a letter. Or invite them out to a forum where we can discuss this in-house. That's where you resolve it. because I did not take that lightly. See, I know what is getting ready to happen. The reason why LIB is on shaky legs is because our community was not strong enough to withstand the attack of these Zionists. And they ran roughshod over WLIB. That's what happened. That's the reality. And that's why they are doing everything they possibly can to cater to these crackers now. I understand what's happening. I've done as much as anybody, probably more, in terms of trying to put LIB on the map. That's a matter of historical record. If you went back and checked the record out, that's a fact. White folks know that because they have admitted that themselves. But the attack that they put on LIB, they have already started on WWRL. Let us be very clear. And it depends upon us to stop this nonsense. And so that's why I say that if you have a problem with any of these stations, don't air it on the radio. Call these people up or write them a letter. We cannot afford to be divisive in public. It's not ethical. We have to have a code of ethics too. Not only do we have to ask black leaders to be ethical, we have to be ethical. And believe me, a lot of white folks do not like the fact that RL is letting people come on. They do not like that. When they thought they had silenced WLIB, they thought that was the end of it. And RL popped up. All right? That's a real reality. That's serious. And we have to defend LIB and RL. Whatever our differences are, we have to remain and keep them in-house. Now, we're getting ready to do as we always do here at the Slave Theater, because we know that the work of other people is very important. Certainly the work of Brother Kwame Ture in Africa. We support everybody else, and we need to support our own. If Brother Ture was in a pulpit on Sunday, he would probably raise $10,000 if it was Reverend Ture. And there's a magic about black people and preachers. But Kwame has done more than most preachers in New York already. And like all of our great giants, we need to show our appreciation for this brother. He only comes over here once a year, and we certainly want him to know how much we love him. So we're going to do this very quickly because he's going to be up here in about 15 minutes. But we want to reach in our pockets, act like there's no tomorrow, and pull out everything and drop it in the bucket. Because there may not be a tomorrow. This is not guaranteed. And we are moving toward a cashless society. All right? So all these dead presidents ain't going to mean nothing in a few days. So y'all better spend them while you can. That's right. They're going to give out debit credit cards. Debit cards. That thing is moving fast already. Faster than you think. Your money ain't going to mean nothing. So you better get the best use out of it right now. And unless you plan to buy a gun tonight, drop it in the basket. Will my country... All right? Unless you plan to buy a gun tonight, drop that dead president in the basket. Because you're going to either need a gun or Kwame to save you. That's the real deal. Now, they're going to make this money obsolete very soon. NAFTA, the European Community, and the Unification of Asia is moving toward a one-world government. So many things are happening in so many parts of the country that many of us do not know about them. I've only been able to read a small smattering of what this sister is about. This sister is one of the most courageous lawyers in America, from Selma, Alabama. Selma, Alabama, Rose Sanders, one of the most courageous lawyers in America. She has been prosecuted, she has been jailed, she takes it to the streets. This sister right here, she's facing criminal charges right now. And we are very blessed to have her in our presence. However, it is a shame that our news apparatus is so weak that things that people are doing in other parts of the country, we don't even know about it all. And so I'm going to ask this sister just to say a couple words to us as we get ready to bring on our main speaker. Let's give Sister Sanders a big hand.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, my brothers and sisters. I want to talk to you very fast because there's so much to say, and I do not want to take the time from my beloved brother. Let me give you briefly what has happened in the struggle in Selma, and it is happening right here in New York, and most of you don't know it. There's a treacherous system out there that is killing our children called tracking. Some people call it ability grouping. It is an extension of Plessy v. Ferguson's and a circumvention of the Plessy decision, which outlawed separate and unequal education in this country 30 years ago. But separate and unequal education is taking place in Selma, Brooklyn, and throughout this country as I speak. We have gone to the street for equal toilets, equal water, but we have never fought righteously for the education of others to stop the miseducation of African American children. In Selma, when we discovered this system, it's so insidious, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are, it is the most dangerous form of discrimination that has ever existed. It really determines, the school system predetermines if your child is going to become a prison inmate or physician when they enter public school at 6 years old. We do nothing about it because we have assumed the inferiority of our own children. Not only have white people assumed that our children are inferior, but we have assumed that our children are inferior. In Selma, when we discovered this treacherous system was tracking our kids into crime and drugs and teenage pregnancy, we fought against it. And they hold this system so dear that they jailed us. My daughter's in the audience. Can I have her to stand? She's a beautiful student activist. She took over a school, Malika Shah Sanders, would you please stand? My 12-year-old daughter was jailed and many other parents, but we did not give up. As the brother said, I'm not facing criminal charges now. I was then. We beat the criminal charges, but the bar is constantly harassing me and my husband and my other law partners because we are an activist law firm. We believe that we were black people before we were lawyers, and when we are involved in a struggle, we do whatever is necessary to bring about justice and liberation for our people. Thank you.
Sister Rose Sanders, let's give it up. Let's give it up. Let's give it up. Give it up. Some of y'all are not from the backwoods of the South. I am. All right? I know most of y'all are from the North, because y'all know where I'm from. You can tell by my accent. Georgia. The backwoods of Georgia. But it takes a lot of courage in rural Alabama to stand up to crackers. It takes a lot of courage. And this sister needs to be commended for her strong courage and commitment to African people. Every so often, Jack Feld and I meet up downtown. We buy all of the various newspapers. And we also often get an opportunity to read about what is happening around the country. And let me tell you, I am so honored and pleased myself to have an opportunity to meet this sister, because it shows you that there are still a few courageous black lawyers still around. That's what it shows. It's not that many. It's not that many. As a matter of fact, at least she can be safe in Alabama than here, because at least she ain't suspended this bar yet. See, they know they got a problem in Alabama. We don't know that yet. You know, y'all think these northern crackers are all right. You know, that's what y'all think. I know better. I know better. Y'all think these northern crackers are all right. But she said that her daughter is here and that her daughter led a boycott of the schools. I want her daughter to stand up so everybody can see her this time. Stand up so everybody can see you. All right, let's give her a big hand. I'm just going to make this one final point to show you how history connects. Some of you the other day, for the first time, got acquainted with Vernon John. Is that correct? All right. Vernon John's niece led a boycott of schools in Virginia that brought about the case of Brown versus Board of Education. In fact, there were 3 cases, one in South Carolina, one in Topeka, Kansas, and the other in Virginia. That was Vernon John's niece, that led that boycott and shook up this nation. Led all the kids out as a teenager. Led them out of the schools. But this continues. They cannot kill the spirit. They can kill Vernon John. They can kill Dr. King. They can kill Malcolm X. But somebody will rise up. Somebody will rise up and carry on the matter. They can't break our spirit. We're on the move. The Bible talks about miracles. The biggest miracle in the world is African people. The mere fact that we're still here is a miracle. It's a miracle. We refuse to die. Refuse. Can't kill us. The more they kill us, the more we reproduce. Put our men in jail cells and we still produce more babies. Only thing black men do is drop a seed in a woman's pocketbook. Crackers just learned about artificial insemination. We've been doing it for years. That's how bad we are. That's right. We don't put our stuff in no test tubes. All that we do is put it in a napkin and get it back to Brooklyn. The sisters know what to do with it. That's how bad we are. Now, without further ado, I want everybody in the house to get on their feet and give a thundering applause to our keynote speaker for tonight, Brother Kwame Ture. Brother Kwame Ture. Brother Kwame Ture. In the living flesh. laid my eyes on Kwame Ture 32 years ago in Washington, D.C., Howard University. I had just come up from the Red Clay of Georgia, and Kwame was headed to the Red Clay of Georgia. I was trying to get away from him. He was running to it. We was at Howard. And I remember on this day that I saw him, one of my friends said, "Do you know who that brother is?" And I hadn't seen the brother, and this must have been about February. I hadn't seen him all year. And they said, "That brother is Stokely Carmichael then. That's Brother Stokely." I said, "Oh, yeah?" So he's a bad brother. And what was amazing about it is that at Howard University, when we first got there, all of us were wearing our Sunday best. And this brother was stroking across the lawn in his overalls, his combat jacket, and his combat boots. They call Brogan. He still wear them. I mean, he's still in combat to this very day. Now, he is at war. Some of you just say we at war. This brother understands what a war really is. And so, as we were marveling at this brother, you know, when you were a freshman, and you're looking at a deep upperclassman, and you're marveling at him, and the person said, "Well, you know, this brother is so deep that he don't even have to study. He enrolled in the heaviest course at Howard University and then go south." I said, "Boy, that's bad." That gave me an idea. I didn't want to go to school anyway. So I said, "Well, I'm going to be like this brother." I said, "I'm going to not go to class either." The only difference is that at the end of 4 years, he graduated magna cum laude, and I graduated thank you laude. And I have marveled at his works. I went back south myself, spent a lot of time in the South, in the movement, in voter registration, other places around Georgia where I'm from. Because the movement is somewhat went away from Georgia, and I figured that I have a responsibility to deal with my own state first. And so we spent some time there, but I have always been moved by this brother. And last year, he and I had a long conversation, and at that particular time, he stressed one thing, and that's the unity of African people. The unity of African people. And he asked, would I, in some way, try to assist in that endeavor? Well, it really took a long time for me to figure out how we would be able to start moving toward unity. And I think last Wednesday was at least one step forward. But I realized that in order for us to be united, some of us got to put our egos in our pocket in order for us to be united. Some of us got to put our egos in our pockets, and we got to follow some directions if we're going to succeed. And so I have submitted myself. And what I like about Kwame Ture more than anything else, and it's something that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said many years ago. He said that the true African is an humble person. Humility is the key. This is a humble brother here. I don't care how fiery you may have heard him. One-on-one, this brother is humble. And that's the sign. No arrogance, humility. I don't care who he meets, who he comes across, whether they're educated or uneducated, rich or poor. He has the same stride. And that's the greatest testament to Kwame Ture, is that he is a servant of black people. And I give to you at this time our brother, our warrior, our teacher, Kwame Ture.
Well, we wish to thank you very, very much for such a very warm welcome. Our attempts to come here has only been delayed because of all the work we have to do and because of the tyranny of time. It's a tyrant time. Osage folk, Kwame and Nkrumah used to whistle all the time. So many beautiful things to do, so little time. But we are honored after a long struggle that we're able to come to the slave. A young man said to me, yes, he said, I want to go to the slave tomorrow night. I said, yes, sir. He said, are you tired? I said, even if I'm sleeping, I just got to go there and open my mouth because the slave has a base of conscious people who come there. So going to the slave is not a task for me. It's very easy. This task, which we're involved in, the task of conscious raising of the masses of people, must be properly understood. Each audience which you come before is not the same audience. But our task is raising consciousness. And in some audiences, the level of consciousness is much higher than it is in others. This is a fact. At the slave, you have many activists. You have people who I have known over 3 decades. One of the good things about life would be a quote that I would steal from Martin Luther King. He used to say, longevity has its rewards. And I used to think, I'll never live to get any of them. But as life would have it, he went before me. You never can know, he's the lucky one. He goes at 39, becomes a hero. You stay around at 52, make errors, and even have your mother scream at you. We're at the slave and extremely happy to be here before the United African Movement and its leader, Alton Maddox. We have followed closely the work here in the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, of which I have the honor of being a Central Committee member. We have Central Committee members here in New York who follow closely the work of the United African Movement. As a matter of fact, we have present in the audience 2 members of our Central Committee whom I have a great pleasure of introducing to you. One is Sister Mawina Kuyate, and the other one is... And the other one is Brother David Brothers, who is 75 years young. Where's David? So in New York, they follow very closely your work. We're in constant contact with them. We speak with them. Even though most of our work is public, do not think for 1 minute that we are not working. As a matter of fact, the press just ties you up. Our work is done quietly and effectively. One of the rewards of longevity I happened to see tonight when Sister Rose Sanders took the stage. I said, well, I remember that little young girl in Selma when she just got a tooth on struggle. I remember when she just got full of fire. I said, well, some keep the fire. For others it goes out. She's kept hers. It's getting brighter. And she represents the real true history of struggles in this country. The press would have you believe that most people who struggle, after they get tired, they sit down. But the slave is a testimony to the lie of this statement. Most of the people here have decades of constant struggle behind them as a history. Thus, we are never confused by the press. Never. The press represents the capitalist system. And the capitalist system does not lie some of the time. It lies all of the time. All of the time. When it tells the truth, it's a result of a double lie. It's a fact. It's a fact. We are very proud to be at the slave. Thus tonight, unlike our discussion in other areas, we would like to give you an update of what we've been doing. Now, I want to tell you in the very beginning, our early introduction into struggle was through the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Here, our task would go into little towns in the South. quietly infiltrate ourselves into the towns, find the strongest Africans there, willing to sacrifice their lives, build a base from them until one is able to take the town. Here, the press is really an enemy. So since my early days of work for my people, I could not use the press. And in my later days in struggle, I understand that one should never depend upon the press. This is extremely important. And as we give you an update on the work we've been doing, the work we've been trying to do to advance our people, we will show you the relationship of the press to our struggle. We say from the very beginning, unless you don't control it, don't ever think it's your friend. We say from the very beginning, since you don't control it, when you deal with it, you must know you're dealing with an enemy, and therefore you fight it as an enemy, and you make the enemy work for the masses of your people. We want to bring you some updates on the question of identity. You know, it's crucial for a people whose culture has been destroyed. If one doesn't know who one is, one really cannot know what one's interests are or where one is going. This fact can be properly understood if after you've entered the theater tonight, the slave, when the meeting is over, you forgot even where you live, you're in serious problems. You're in serious problems. Thus, always understanding where you come from, where you must go, and who you are crucial for all people, but especially for an oppressed people. Indeed, the first job of the oppressor is to wipe out the culture of the oppressed and have the oppressed believe that they have the same culture as the oppressor. His job is to have you think that you have the same history as the oppressor. Once he thinks that you have the same history, once you think you have the same culture, you will think that the enemies of your oppressor happens to be your enemies. Once you know your history, once you know your culture, you will know that the enemies of your enemy must be aided to bring down your enemy. This has to do a lot with the question of identity. Now, we must tell you in our analysis, we do not make the errors that others do. Anytime you make an analysis of an oppressed people in any aspect of their life and you leave out the enemy, you will never come to a correct analysis. On the contrary, you will blame the oppressed for all of their problems. Therefore, we tell you from the very beginning, we've never taken the line of others that the biggest problem that we have is we ourselves. No, our biggest problem is our enemy, capitalism, and it must be destroyed. We say any analysis you make of an oppressed people must include the oppressor, otherwise you will come up with an incorrect analysis blaming the oppressed for their position of oppression. Even if one were to talk about the drugs in our community, if you just talk about drugs and not talk about the enemy, you make no analysis at all. Or you may sound serious saying about, well, you know, the trouble with our kids is that all they're doing is fighting for drugs and shooting each other for drugs, and I wish they would stop. If you haven't brought in the question of who brings the drugs in, why the drugs are brought in, for what purpose they're brought in, you will never understand the problem at all. Thus we make it clear to each and every one, when we speak of the conditions of the African masses, we begin from the very beginning with the enemy of the African masses, all unjust system that seeks to exploit us, capitalism, and especially the racist capitalist system in the United States of America. It is this system which comes to confuse us as to the question of identity. Go into any Italian community, ask all of them what they are. Each and every one of them will tell you without responding, Italian. Go to any Polish community inside this country, ask from the little youngest to the oldest one what they are. Without blinking an eye, they will tell you Polish, each and every last one of them. Go to the Palestinian community here, which is still not free. You'll find Palestinians born in America. Ask any of them quickly, what are you? Without blinking an eye, they will tell you Palestine is not free, and I'm fighting to make it free even in America. Go to Africans. who've been in America longer than all of them. Go to Africans who came here under conditions none of them came here under. All of them volunteered to came here, went to get visas to get here. Look at the Africans who didn't ask to come here, who were brought here against their will, who should hate America and should be the last to claim they're Americans. Ask them, what are you? I'm American and proud of it, and if you say something against it, I'll kill you. They say the job of the enemy is to make you identify totally with the enemy. Even if we call ourselves Americans, they don't treat us like Americans. They don't treat us like Americans. We have built this country, and they shoot us down in the street like dogs, and somebody's still holding on to them, but we Americans. There's nothing in America for us except exploitation. There's nothing in America for us except exploitation and oppression. Ask any of us, and if you have 1,000 of us in one room and ask each of us what we are, you get 1,000 different answers. Of course, you and the slave know what we speak of. We are forced with the same problem here. The problem is through political persuasion, through constant discussion, using nothing but the truth to let our people know exactly what they are. Africans. Nothing more, nothing less. Nothing more, nothing less. Of course, as we pointed out over and over again, this question of not wanting to be an African is based squarely in ignorance. The enemy keeps us ignorant, not haphazardly, but by calculated plans. Go and pick up any textbook that you had as a child. Go now and pick up the textbooks that your children have. The only time Africa is mentioned is that she gave slaves to America, and that the slaves who came from Africa to America should be very happy because the price of slavery and the oppressions of America is better than the barbaric life which we lived in Africa. Thank you very much, America. These are facts. You will read in all your textbooks about all the great things the Germans did. The contribution of the French to world humanity. The contribution of the British to world humanity. The contribution of the Italians to world humanity. But Africa, no contributions at all. We say in the very beginning, the struggle here begins with a fight against ignorance. But this fight against ignorance must be properly understood. Not only does the enemy make you ignorant, but then he makes you want to love ignorance and hate knowledge. Hate knowledge. Take any unconscious African. Hey brother, hey sister, what's happening African? I ain't no African. Well, I know you don't know nothing. I know you ain't no African, but would you like to read something about Africa? What's that going to do for me? And they think that when they respond to this, that they're really thinking. Taught by the enemy to react to stimuli, and in the act of reacting, they seriously think they are thinking. The task we have before our hands is a serious and difficult task. But we are revolutionaries. We do not run from difficulty. We run to difficulty. We are African revolutionaries. We understand that man and woman only advances through confrontation with obstacles in their path. And the bigger the obstacles are, the more you knock them down, the more confidence you have that you can knock down any obstacle, especially when it's relationship to the struggle of the masses of your people. Thus we tell them all, we of the All-African People's Revolutionary Party make the revolution difficult for us. Put every obstacle in the path. The Africans in Trinidad, in their sing-song English, say, the rougher the water, the stronger the swimmer. Yes. The rougher the battle, the stronger the warrior. And your people need strong warriors. Your people need strong warriors. Therefore, we tell the enemy, we're not afraid of you. We'll face the people. This struggle of arriving at African is crucial. When one says one is a Negro, it sounds good, even with capital N. And that's what they did to us, yes. But after all, there is no such thing as Negro land. None whatsoever. This, then, is an invention of the master to put you somewhere hanging in space in history nowhere. So as a Negro, the only land you know is America. So, well, okay, what you say, you know, I wasn't born anywhere else in America. This is all I know, and da-da-da. The jump from Negro to black is important. Here now, you come to confront the enemy. So you think because I'm black, you're going to make me shame. Dig this. Nappy hair and all, I'm coming, and I know I'm beautiful. Dig that. Yeah. This aspect, then, of black is absolutely in advance of a Negro. But still, there is no black land. It is only when you arrive at Africa that you arrive at the proper conclusion, because Africa is the richest continent on the face of the earth. Africa's wealth is not to be found in her uranium, her gold, and her diamonds. Africa's wealth is to be found in the great contributions which we made to humanity in the area of morality, ethics, and humanist values. This is Africa's great contribution. We want to just pause a little about Africa's contribution. We usually give the one on religion, so many of you have heard it before, but it's important. It shows us so much. We say the enemy not only makes you ignorant, but then makes you lazy in your ignorance, make you enjoy your ignorance, and fight against any acquisition of knowledge. If Africans are excited about anything in their cultural life, it is their religion. We are a very, very religious people. Africans carry the Bibles under their arms everywhere. Go into their houses, you'll find copies everywhere. Go to church every Sunday, but never think of reading the Bible from cover to cover. Never think of it at all. Though they will swear that this is the book that dominates their lives. The capitalist system makes them Christians, not have them read the Bible, and let them think they're Christians, and who's giving them Christianity? A pimp who uses the pulpit to drive a Cadillac. And Jesus Christ wore sandals. He said, it's easier for a needle to go through, a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man, any rich man, to enter the kingdom of heaven. And yet you will hear preachers who tell you, you just got to send me a letter, and I'll pray to God, and God will send you a $20 bill. A true Christian can only pray to God to thank God for giving them life and continued strength in the day-to-day battle. We do not leave it here on this level. We say the enemy comes to confuse us. All our churches have white Jesus Christs, all of them. We speak facts here. Read your Bible. Read the life of Jesus Christ, peace be upon his name. His foot never touched any part of Europe, not even 1 square millimeter. Even in your Bible, Europe is not mentioned in the Old Testament at all. It's only in the New Testament, and here it's found near the end by Revelations. We say that Jesus Christ could not be white, but somebody painted him white. As a matter of fact, if you properly know the history of Jesus Christ, peace be upon his name, you can say that Jesus Christ can be just about any color, but the one color he definitely could not be is, oh, you know it. A few days ago, when speaking with a sister, she told me, Brother Kwame, I have a lot of trouble with Christians. I said, no, you shouldn't have trouble with them. She said, yes. She said, I went to this Christian. I just told them about Africa. They told me, get out of my face. I said, she's not a Christian. Any Christian must respect Africa. Every Christian must respect Africa. The first country mentioned in the Bible, Genesis 2, verse 13, Ethiopia is in Africa. That's Genesis 2, verse 13. In your Bible, it might be spelled Cush. Don't get confused. When they say Cushite, they're talking about you. You are the Cushites. You will just go to any dictionary and you look at the word Cush, it will say ancient name for Ethiopia. Cush. When Jesus Christ, peace be upon his name, was in trouble, everybody wanted to lynch him, kill him, threaten his life. He had to run. Who gave him refuge? Africa. Where did he grow up? Africa. Where was the first church established? Africa. Where was the first monastery established? Africa. The very intellectual development of the church came out of Alexandria, which is in Egypt, which still is in Africa. We just mentioned briefly some of Africa's great contributions to Christianity, only in passing. As a matter of fact, I do not think, and I'm not certainly a student of the Bible, as a human being, I read the Bible. Even if I'm not a Christian, I have to read the Bible because so many people call themselves Christians and are affected by this book. If I must deal with them, I too must know something about the book. I'm not a scholar in the Bible, but I'm almost sure that probably the word Egypt and Ethiopia appears in the Bible more than any other country mentioned in the Bible. We just cite these facts to show you that if Christians were reading their Bible, being Christians who are also Africans, they would be doubly proud. Proud of what Africa has done for Christianity, and proud as Christians that they can affirm what they are and show their beautiful image as their God, as they say, created them, different for others for his own best understanding. The enemy will not only try to have you identify with him in every means, but he'll even try to make you look like him in every way. Yes. But your God is a mighty God. Your God knows what he's done. You may try to get away from your God. You may put everything you want in the here that your God gave you, but time alone and God will bring it back to where it's supposed to be. You do not think that we're not consistent. If you wore your hair in the natural in the 60s and then you come back and change in the 90s, don't think everybody else has changed. The reasons for which you wore it in the 60s are even more valid in the 90s. The struggle is an eternal struggle. The capitalist system will confuse you. Miriam Makeba was fond of saying that our people are just the now people. They want everything now. If you tell them something for later, I ain't got no time for later. I want it now. Capitalism makes you think that everything must come now. But the struggle in which you're involved in is a struggle in which you will not reap that which you've sown. You have already reaped that which has been sown by past generations. You must sow for future generations to reap. I'm so tired of brothers and sisters coming and saying, when we going to enjoy the good life? It ain't for you, it's for the next generation. Do your work now for the next generation. When you work for your people, it is not what you receive, it's what you give. And the best thing about working for the people is that what you really give for the people, sometimes nobody else knows except you. This is real struggle for the people. This is real struggle for the people. Thus, we must wipe out from our minds that the struggle in which we're involved in is going to give us any victories. The struggle in which we're involved in is an eternal struggle. We are not working for ourselves. We are working for generations to come. Therefore, what I've done, you ain't even begin to see. Generations later will come to thank us for the work we've done now. This aspect of understanding eternal struggle and understanding identity is tied together. The Honorable Marcus Garvey said it best. Africa for the Africans at home and those abroad. The Honorable Marcus Garvey said it best. We must build an African empire which will protect us all. The Honorable Marcus Garvey saw clear. But American capitalism will come to confuse you, filter your mind, let you think that, oh, Africa is not so important after all. Africa doesn't mean this or that. Without Africa, none of us will be able to speak of freedom. We must come to understand how tied we are to Africa. That can be easily demonstrated quantitatively, not even qualitatively. We've spent at best in America some 500 years. Do you know that woman began in Africa? Do you know how many years you spent in Africa? Before 500. Matter of fact, 500 years is less than the drop of a grain of sand in the ocean when compared to African history. And the 500 years that we've spent in America ain't nothing but hell. You must really be confused that you want to give up millions of years of history, millions of years of development, millions of years of movement for 500 years of hell. Africa is our home. Africa is our only salvation. Thus, since we are among conscious fighters, we just want to inspire you. Do not ever get tired of the struggle in which you're involved in. As a matter of fact, a true struggler becomes better every day at what he's doing. Years ago, it would take me a long time to convince a brother or sister of a certain point in the struggle. Now I can do it in 2 minutes, and I'm working to do it in 2 seconds. We must every day perfect ourselves, which we call the instruments of advancement. Every day, in every way. What I used to organize and take 2 weeks to do when I was 22 years old, working in Mississippi in the South, today, in any village in Guinea, in West Africa, I must be able to do the same thing in 2 days. It is only this constant progress of we ourselves who are fighters. The fighters sometimes make the mistake of not seeing the necessity for them to perfect themselves as an instrument to help raise the conscience of our people. If you want somebody to follow something that you are telling them, which is a good advice, the best way to make them follow it is to be the best example of the advice you're giving them. In no way should this mean that if a liar is telling you the truth, that you should not accept the truth. No. The truth out of anybody's mouth is still the truth. And wherever you hear the truth, you must accept it. You must use it. The Chinese say, be not warned by the speaker, but the words that she speaketh. The Africans say, listen even to the enemy. He too can tell you the truth. This problem of going to Africa is very serious. It's a struggle, and the enemy knows it. And we want to show you how the enemy comes to work in every aspect of our lives. We must understand that power does not begin on the level of implementation. Some people take the mechanical definition of power as the ability to do and think that this is power. Power begins on the level of conception, not on the level of implementation. Examples abound everywhere. If you are a math student and you enter a math class and you conceive, having proper conception, that Africa gave math to the world, therefore I'm an African, I can dominate this mathematics. I bet you if you go into a class with this conception, you'll dominate mathematics. But if you come with the conception given to you by the enemy, you know, math is hard for us Africans. You know, all we can do is play basketball and music. And you know this math just ain't no good for me. The math will whoop you. The math will whoop you. Power begins on the level of conception, not on the level of implementation. That's why it is necessary for us to think for ourselves as a people, not to think like the enemy wants us to think or even trains us to think. Conception. Let me show you how the level of conception breaks down in political work. In the 1960s, we call ourselves Negro. Thanks to the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, thanks to the work of Malcolm X, we were able to jump from Negro to black in the late 60s. You are all conscious workers here. All of you have been involved in this process because this is not a youth group to which we speak. You know when you think yourself as a Negro and when you think yourself as a black man, what a great difference there is. Just in the level of conception. Let me give you an example of how this level of conception comes to really show implementation. Let us say that we're given the task to organize African student associations on all the college campuses in America. There are two ways to endure the task. We can ourselves go to every college campus, divide up ourselves, and fight to put an African student association up there. But once black power has been declared and the conception has been understood, African student associations will spring up in every university almost automatically by themselves. This aspect then of conception is important. The enemy knows that when we went from Negro to black, it was a real problem. The enemy knows to go from Negro to black is harder than it is to go from black to African. The enemy must stop us from getting to African. The enemy must stop us. All African revolutionaries know that the cultural revolution is the most important revolution in Africa because the people without a culture have no cohesive force and cannot wage a proper struggle. And if the people are depending upon the culture of the enemy, they are finished. Thus, the enemy uses our culture against us. We went from Negro to black, getting ready to go to African. He said, hold it, let's mess with the culture. He got some rap artists who have no understanding of life. They judge success of the people's culture by how they can rip it off and sell it to the white man rather than how much they can use it to advance the people on the course of liberation. And then he pumped up all the airwaves. I mean, one thing about him, he gonna saturate you with poison. They saturate you with poison. All over the mass media, he got these little rap artists to disrespect us, disrespect everybody, and try to bring us below Negro. The enemy is working in vain. We are going to Africa, and nothing can stop us. Thus, we must understand properly the process here. These rap artists are only straw men. The fight is not with them. The fight is with capitalism. The fight is with the enemy that uses our culture against us. They're only collaborators in the system. Their role must be properly explained to them. But if you think you wipe out a rap artist, you've stopped the problem, you've made a mistake. You wipe out one, they'll bring 10 more, saying worse stuff than the 10 before you just wiped out. We must be careful here. We must come to understand precisely our culture. And the only way we can understand that is when we understand where our culture had its formation, where our culture had its strength, where our culture can resist itself, and the only place it can do that is in Africa. Clearly then, we will move off of this subject. Of course, more should be said on it, but we're before conscious strugglers. Our job here is only to encourage you on the path that you've taken, to understand that your people have very few who love them, very few at this time who care about them, very few who are willing to sacrifice for them. And if you drop out, you are not only a disservice to your people, you are a traitor to the cause of your people. This aspect of being a traitor must be properly understood. Properly understood. In any country, a capitalist country or a socialist country, if the country is at war and you're a soldier and you go AWOL, you can be shot. In any country, if your people are at war and you say they are at war and nobody drafts you, you come to volunteer for the people. And you say you come to volunteer because the people in fair conditions, I've got to do something, and I'll be around here for a while. You're going to hear about me. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then the conditions of the people get worse, and you drop out. We have every right to shoot you. What we say is serious. The enemy uses this against us. He takes the petty bourgeois elements of our people who've been involved in struggle in the 60s, make them drop out of the struggle, and show them on the press everywhere. So people think, oh, all those people fighting in the 60s, they dropped out. I see before me a lot of people who I've known personally here involved in struggle, and they're still here struggling. They ain't gone nowhere. As a matter of fact, they got better at struggle. Better at struggle. We continue then. This aspect of African must be understood. You must be constant in your political education. The enemy doesn't stop politicizing us with all his vice. And his television's the same thing 1,000 times. Buy me, buy me, buy me. Getting a woman to kick her legs up in the air. Buy this, buy that, buy that, buy everything. Always pushing vice. We come and say, Africa, Africa, Africa. And after a while, the enemy says, are we tired of hearing that African stop? Stop it. You ain't heard nothing yet. You're going to hear Africa till you die. We do not surrender before any force that's opposed to our people. And we will not stop doing our responsibility. Our responsibility is to educate our people. Our responsibility is to make a people who have been made ignorant by oppression come to first love knowledge, to want to seek knowledge, so that they can understand it is only through knowledge that they can come to better the conditions of the masses of their people. And if we surrender before this, we have done ourselves a great disservice. In fact, we have betrayed the sacred cause of our people. As for us, once we've taken a step on the road, we will continue on that road until a bullet finds us, and if none finds us, death will only find us working for our people. We give you now some updates on our struggles. We want to speak about this process of politics, of bourgeois electoral politics. Because that's all it is. Anytime to get elected, it depends upon how much money you got. You're playing capitalist politics. And the United States of America, it's who got the most coin, gonna win. For Africans who don't have any money, it doesn't even make sense to get involved in this. Which of you in this audience do not know that the Democratic Party is corrupt? Which of you do not know that the Republican Party is corrupt? Which of you do not know that any African who enters those parties, they have but one objective: corrupt the African. Corrupt the African. We must look at history. Malcolm is correct. And we do not go way back. We just take it to 1966. Working as an organizer for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in Lowndes County, Alabama. A county which was filthy with racist terrorism. I mean, the racist terrorists there used to kill people just to let you know that they were around. Lowndes County has a history of blood. When in 1965, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee assigned a task of workers there, I was honored to be among those workers. We came to Lowndes County. When we entered Lowndes County in 1965, there was not one African registered to vote, even though 85% of the population in that county were Africans. You must understand the terror of this county. I just situated for you geographically so you can see how terrible it is. Lowndes County lies between Selma, Alabama, where Sister Rose Sanders is speaking to you from, and Montgomery, Alabama. You know, in Montgomery, Alabama, Martin Luther King started his movement in 1954. And the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee started the movement in Selma in 1960. And King had his famous Selma to Montgomery march in 1965. Thus, between Lowndes County stood Selma and Montgomery, which were seething with activity. But those terrorist groups told them, you leave that stuff out there. When you come to Lowndes County, you better start saying, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and bow down before you get here. They didn't play. But we are revolutionaries. We don't play either. We don't play. We talk, joke, and drink a lot of coke, but when you mess with our people, Jack, we don't play. We went in there and told them, we're going to organize these people and take the power from these pigs. I will tell you, if you look at the history, many were killed in that struggle. I will tell you, if you look at the history, houses were burned, people were tortured. I'll tell you, if you look at that history, you will see nothing but a war. When those Africans came time to vote, the Democratic Party came to present itself. At that time, the Democratic Party was run by George Wallace. You must know your history. You must know your history. Each Democratic Party in each state has its own state emblem. I know very little about the Democratic Party, but I assume the state of New York has an emblem for the Democratic Party. In Alabama, Georgia, in 1965, the emblem of the Democratic Party of the state of Alabama was a white rooster, a white cock, with the words white supremacy written over it. This was the official emblem of the Democratic Party of Alabama in 1965. How can it be that I, who have shed my blood for the vote, can invite my people to get into a party like this? One must have integrity above all. And when one represents the people's struggle, one must represent the people's struggle with dignity. Must represent with dignity. Alabama law allowed for the creations of third parties quickly because they were sure it would never be done. That's the enemy's error. Because of the illiteracy among whites, because of the rate of illiteracy among whites, the Alabama law prescribed that each party must have an emblem. Thus, we in Alabama, Lowndes County, had the task of getting an emblem. I have always known from the time I'm a young man working in the movement, anytime you have a problem, take it to the people, they'll solve it. All right. We called a meeting of the people. We said, listen, this is the emblem of the Alabama Democratic State Party. Obviously, we cannot have our people voting for a white cock that says white supremacy. We have to have an emblem. Please come up with one. And there were some examples, but somebody came up with a Black Panther. The people. You must never lose faith in your people, especially the illiterate masses. They are the true salt of our movement. They came up with a Black Panther. Who, putting a Black Panther next to a white cock, would not immediately say, Black Panther? Yes, our Black Panther would get rid of a white cock just with blowing his breath. Well, get out the way. This is the beginning of the Black Panther Party. The Africans in Alabama understood that they could not vote in the Democratic Party. But this decision not to vote there preceded another one. Let me take you back into your history. In 1964, Africans could not vote in Mississippi. The talk now of the trial of Medgar Evans just gives you some example. As a matter of fact, for us living there, it was nothing but terror. I mean, we were in Vietnam. I remember a man once said to me, are you only 19 years old and you out there getting shot at? How you do that? I said, well, if I wasn't conscious, I'd be in Vietnam getting shot for nothing. Take a bullet for my people any day. Take a bullet for nothing, never. Never. Yes. People were here. They had to go to a party. We developed in the 1964 campaign, Africans couldn't vote. Listen to the strategy of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. We decided, of course, I voted against the proposal. I lost. But me, I'm disciplined. I am disciplined. Once I adhere to the principles of an organization, if a vote goes down and I lose, but I agree with the principles, I stay in the organization. As a matter of fact, if I don't agree with the principles, I would never be in the organization in the first place. Consequently, in all the organizations I've been in many cases, I've been in minority, lost positions. Later, those positions proved to be the correct. Sometimes they proved to be incorrect. But I'm a disciplined member in any organization, always willing to have the minority submit to the will of majority once the principles of the organization is kept intact. Thus, I lost this one, and many of us who were nationalists, we lost it. But we're honest fighters. The program of SNCC was simple. We are going to create a mock Democratic Party. Their name, Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. Of course, we were opposed to the word democratic, but we lost again. They voted for the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. I say that I'm a disciplined organizer, and I'm a disciplined member of an organization. When I vote in a vote and I lose, I do not suck teeth. I come to those who win. Give me your program. I'm going to work best on it to show you where you're incorrect. Consequently, I now come to take on the program of the majority and work hard in their program, not trying to sabotage it at all, because I'm convinced it's incorrect. As we work harder, they will see their incorrectness, or I might see my incorrectness. But one thing is clear, it is only by working on the program of the majority in the organization, even if you disagree with it, that truth will be found out. We were against it, but we worked very hard. I had the honor of serving as director of the Congressional District for the Delta of Mississippi, where most of the violence was to be found. This was an honor for me. Our Congressional District had none other than Miss Fannie Lou Hamer as our Congressional District. One of the rewards of longevity is that one of the best things in my job is that I always have the honor of meeting people who fight for their people without expecting the slightest rewards. It is they who let me know that the people can never be corrupted, only the petty bourgeois elements of our people. Here they are. Miss Hamer, I need not speak of. All of you know. If you don't know, you need to know. You need to know. Our congressional district was very well organized. We went to protest in Atlantic City. I was against the protest, but I went, followed out and carried out my task to the point, efficiently, effectively, so that no one can criticize me or even suggest that I'm trying to sabotage the program because I do not agree with it. The Democratic Party told the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party that they will give them 2 seats out of the delegation. When one would add the bloodshed that was spilled in Mississippi, the torture, the imprisonment, all of the problems, the people getting kicked off their lands, the unemployment, etc. Really, this was nothing but an insult. Some African leaders tried to convince the people of Mississippi that they should accept the compromise. But the people of Mississippi, they had a different experience. They could not accept the compromise because they would have to return to Mississippi and tell the people who shed their blood, whom they represented, why they accepted such an insult. They could not accept it. Thus, the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party returned to Mississippi empty-handed. Those of us who were in a minority position when the vote went down 18 months earlier were ecstatic. Our point had arrived. We came forward now. You ain't got no program. Your only program is follow the Democratic Party. We got one. What's your program? Forget the Democratic Party. Make your own independent party. They laughed at us. Oh, third parties never work in America. There's nothing. That's what the white man tell you. Even history doesn't work yesterday, doesn't mean that everything stays the same. Everything changes all the time. And what didn't work yesterday can easily work today if you're making concrete analysis of the changing materiality and especially the rising consciousness of the masses of your people. So when we went to Alabama, we went for independent politics. Our party, the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, has never participated in any activity by the Democratic Party. Never. And we never will. For us, it's a very simple question. In the first instance, the Democratic Party can never represent our interests. Never. It's and only in America can you see this, where the richest people in the country and the poorest people in the country belong to the same party. Only in America. Kennedy belongs to the Democratic Party. The poorest sharecropper in Mississippi belongs to the Democratic Party. One doesn't have to know anything about politics to know that wherever the rich and the poor are assembled together, the rich is always eating off of the poor. One doesn't have to be political. One doesn't have to be conscious to know that at all. Therefore, in the Democratic Party, where there's rich and poor, there's no question for us who controls. It's the rich. And if you're poor, they'll make you rich. I give you a clear example. When Jesse Jackson started to run for President of the United States of America... No, me, I don't attack. I just give facts. When Jesse Jackson started to run for President of the United States of America, he was not very rich. Today, he's more than a millionaire. And let me tell you something. He did not steal this money. He got it legally. The democratic system is such that it legally corrupts you. I'll give you examples everywhere. I remember when Reagan was president of this country. Every time he spoke about Japan, I thought he was going to go to war with them. I thought someday he's going to slip and even call them Japs. When Reagan escaped down after 8 years, after 2 months, he went to Japan. He made a speech for 20 minutes and got $2 million, all of it legal. Consequently, the very system has corruption built into it. And if you're poor, they make you rich. And once you become rich, no matter what you say, you forget the poor. I know many comrades who fought with me in SNCC. I see them all the time. They say, oh, you know, I've got to go out here. When they left SNCC, they say, listen, you know, the thing is rough. I want to go out here and make a little bit of money, but we need money. As soon as I get some money, I'll help support the revolution. All of them become rich. And every time you see them, they're the first to cry poor mouth. I ain't got no money. Life is so hard. I can't do nothing. So I even ask them for money. They're not going to give it. Once you become rich, you forget the poor. Because the reason you want to get rich is to get away from the poor. That's the only reason you want to get rich. And they will tell you now, from the Bible, blessed are the poor, for you must believe what you say. I know it's true. The other day when having a discussion with my mother in Africa, where she was taking me for some time, She said, how much money do you have in your pocket? I was going to travel. I don't have very much. She said, what you going to do? I said, I can travel around the world with $10 and I will eat into every country I go. I will do it. I've done it before. I have done it before. When I worked in Mississippi, I had no money. As a SNCC field secretary, we were paid $10 a week if you got it, and most of the times you didn't. Who fed me? The people for whom I work. I know the people. You work for them. They will protect you with their lives. I know the people. I know the people. Our party started a campaign in 1972. What was the campaign? Smash the Democratic, Republican, and all capitalist parties. We invited many people to join us. No one joined us. They're all crazy. You know, the Democratic Party is just getting us into positions. We're just getting here, we're just getting there. We understood from the very jump that those positions which they made were to fool the people. But we know you can't fool the people. You can only fool the petty bourgeois elements. It is they who ran to be mayors. The capitalist system thought they had us. With African mayors in the cities, we got them. But Los Angeles showed them, you put anybody there, you won't fool the people. They wrecked Los Angeles even with an African mayor named Tom Bradley who came up through the ranks of the police. You can't fool the people, only the petty bourgeois elements. Since you cannot fool the people, it behooves us to depend upon no one except the people to advance us. And it's only the people that advances us. We say it all the time. Every individual advancement made by every African in this country is a result of the blood of the masses of the people. Everyone. We repeat the statement all the time. It's true. There's nothing that we have achieved in this country without shedding blood. Absolutely nothing. To sit in a filthy 5 and 10 cent store in Selma, Alabama, you got to shed your blood. To ride on a bus where you want to ride, even though you pay the same money as everybody else in Montgomery, Alabama, you got to shed your blood. To live in a neighborhood where you want to live in New York City, even if you've got the same amount of money, you got to shed your blood. To get the vote just like any foreigner gets when they get here, you've got to shed your blood. To get your children into city college, into schools where you pay taxes, you've got to shed your blood. No African sitting here, no non-African sitting here can show me one advancement that an individual African made that was not the result of the blood of the masses of the people. One. History is clear. Logic is strong here. It shows us clearly every position occupied by every individual African was paid for by the blood of the people. That position belongs to the people. It simply means that if I were to be mayor, something I would never do under these conditions, but making a great hypothesis, if I were to be mayor, the only reason I would be mayor would be to mobilize my people, to continue to organize my people so they can continue to wage struggle against the system. I told Marion Barry, who was my first boss. He was the first chairperson of SNCC. A rough brother he was, I know him. They'd knock him down off the seat, he'd get back up. When we got tired, he'd come and he said, y'all my forces. I said, yeah, you're forces. We tired of these folks. We don't want to do that no more. Well, y'all can be tired. If I'm the only one, I'm going out by myself. He'd walk out the door. We have to follow him. I know Marion Barry. But I told him when he became mayor, I said, Marion, if I became mayor of this town, he said, you know, maybe you ought to think about it. I said, no, brother. I said, if I became mayor, the only reason I'd be mayor to call the White House and tell him, I want this. If I don't get this, I'm putting 10,000 students in the street non-violently. I'm blocking Washington, D.C. Ain't nothing moving in your capital. What makes you think a mayor can't call a protest? That's right. Why? What makes you think a mayor cannot use the position of mayor brought forth by the blood of the people to advance the people's cause? That's what it should be used for. If it's not used for that, you've betrayed the blood of the people. Our party is faithful to our line against bourgeois parties and smashing them all. We are happy to see that some Africans, after being insulted by the Democratic Party, now come to understand the truth of that which we speak. We Africans must have our own independent political party. As a matter of fact, once we do this, the Republican and Democratic Party will fall and the country will splinter into parties. These are simple facts. You can look at it yourself, just quantitatively speaking. Many people think that John F. Kennedy became president with a great majority. You must look at history. Don't listen to this capitalist press. Kennedy won by a very slim margin. You know who gave him that margin? Us. The history is there. Martin Luther King was in jail when the vote was going on between Kennedy and Nixon. No African was concerned with that. Everyone was concerned about Martin Luther King. Martin was thinking about voting. We're thinking about King. Everybody loved King because King is an honest man. Even if you disagree with his tactic, even if you disagree with his strategy, you must respect the man whose actions conforms to his words. And whether you liked him or not, he said nonviolence. He was in the front lines, Jack. He said nonviolence. He was the first to go to jail. He said nonviolence. He was the first to be whooped. Therefore, you have to respect this man even if you don't like him. I know many said, well, I ain't going for that nonviolent stuff. I ain't into that. What you doing? Nothing. Shut up. Shut up. That's right. You don't criticize somebody who's doing something when you're doing nothing. Martin Luther King was clear. I said we may disagree with him, but we certainly had to support him. He was clear in his direction. He was clear in what he said. My only disagreement with King was a simple one. I never saw nonviolence as a principle, only as a tactic. This was my only disagreement with King. This was my only disagreement with King. This broke down on the practical level. If nonviolence was ineffective, King would continue. I would pick up a gun. That's the only difference. The only difference. The only difference. We said this aspect of having an independent party is necessary and crucial. And it comes from the level of conception. Once we develop an independent party, we will be the swing vote. Look at the Kennedy vote. We said Martin Luther King was in jail. Everybody was concerned about King. King was held in incommunicado in a jail in Alabama. Kennedy was a senator. As a senator, he had the power to enter any jail in America. He called one of his aides. He said, go quickly to this jail in Alabama, talk to King. The aide went into the jail, spoke to King. He called Kennedy, said, King is all right, they're afraid to touch him. Kennedy called a press conference. I'll never forget it. He called Madam Coretta King on the telephone, and Reverend King Sr. He said to them, I know you're worried about Dr. King. I have sent an aide into the jail. There's nothing wrong with Dr. King, he's well, and I assure you that he will not be touched. The next day, 2 days before the vote, Coretta Scott King and Dr. King called an a press conference. They said before everybody, said he's a good man. He cares about King. He sent somebody to see about King. When he said that, everybody voted for Kennedy. Kennedy won by less than 2% of the vote. That's a historical fact. You know who he lost out against? Nixon. That's why he never forgave us. These are facts. When they talk about Kennedy, you think he won with such a great margin. He won by us. What did he do for us? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I give you just Kennedy. You can go down to all the others, all of them. What do they give us? Nothing. Why do they give us nothing? Because we play politics like we play. Politics is based on power. Even bourgeois electoral politics is based on power. Power for a people comes only through the organized masses. As we are not organized, we have no power at all. And the Democratic Party knows this. It is only in an independent party that we'll be able to collect our own power, feel our own power, and from a position of strength, deal with the others. It's just a simple question. Look, Jack, we have 40% of the vote. We want 40% of the power. We want this, we want this, we want this, we want this, we want this. Everybody does it. When the Polish go to give their vote to the Democratic Party, they already got what they bargained for. We're the only ones who have faith. Faith in an enemy who has never given us any reason to have faith in him. Just blinded faith. Oh, you know, they're going to do what they say. And what do we come up with? Nothing. All right, we will not belabor the point. Just let you know that if you really want to feel the strength of the power of your people, you must build an independent political party. Our party is clear on this. We bring you a slight update on our Smash the FBI and the CIA program. This program we instituted in 1972. It is 1994, and we're still at it, and no organization wants to join it. But we have a responsibility to our people. We know the FBI and the CIA are the pigs that bring confusion inside our community. But we know them. Our people know them. I work with all sorts of organizations, all sorts of statistics and research from our party against the FBI and CIA. Let me give you an example. When the Soviet Union was betrayed by this scum, Gorbachev, and that's all he is, and that's all it was, betrayal. Bush made the great announcement. The evil empire has fallen. We have a lot of CIA agents who've been there. Now we're going to take them and put them in the ghettos. He said it. We have the article. And even said most of them will be sent to the ghetto in Los Angeles. If you look at Los Angeles, these pigs created some havoc there, pumping drugs and guns into the hands and developing gangs like the Crips and the Bloods. But when the rebellion came, it was the same Crips and the same Bloods who received guns from the police to shoot their people who shot the police. The same ones. The CIA, I laugh at them. I remember when the news was made, I was talking to a sister. She said, "Oh, we're in real trouble now." I said, "What you mean?" She said, "You hear what they said? They send the CIA everywhere. They're coming for you." I said, "Well, I ain't worried about them." I ain't even thinking about them. I said, they had all the sophisticated machines they had in Vietnam. And when the Vietnamese overran them, they were running for the helicopters. They were looking at the machine and the Vietnamese were banging in the door. What happened in the Vietnamese? "Oh, we got to get out of here." Well, running for helicopters, kicking each other off. Yes, these are facts. When you face an enemy, you must demystify the enemy. The enemy is a man just like you. The enemy is a woman just like you and makes errors just like you. And when they make errors, you must take all advantage of them. Demystify them. Because of my work, I know the FBI. My mother can bear testimony. You know what these pigs used to do? They used to call my mother up when I was in the South late at night, making believe they were the Ku Klux Klan, which they are, and saying, "Oh, we're going to kill your son now." Imagine that. These pigs, I've dealt with them since I've been a kid. Now I'm a man. That's right. A real man. And when I was a kid, I thought I could whip them. Now I'm a man. I know exactly how people going to whip them. The FBI and the CIA must be smashed if you want revolution. In any state, it is the police force that keeps the status quo in check. Undermining the police force of any state makes the alternative easier for revolution. Thus, attacking the FBI and the CIA is a proper revolutionary strategy. And even though we started by ourselves, since then, we want to tell you great advances have been made, even though we've been alone. Today, the people have more disrespect for the FBI and the CIA than ever before. Always. And it will become worse and worse because of a simple truth. When they were up there like kings, they did whatever they wanted to do. Nobody looked at them, so they didn't cover their dirt. They don't even know how to cover their dirt. And now the people looking at them, looking at the back and looking at them now, they're going to fumble and bumble and just trip up over themselves. Because they've never had anyone looking at them. They were above everybody else, but now today the people are looking at them, looking at their tricks. They can't hardly move, and we're going to tie them up some more until we tie them up completely and make them a force of neutrality in the struggle to overthrow capitalism. We want to give you an update on the African United Front. This will take some time. It's your history. I had the great privilege of going to Vietnam when I was a young man. Of course, I didn't go to fight for America. I didn't go to South Vietnam. I went to North Vietnam. And one of the greatest honors I have to this day is that I had lunch with the great Ho Chi Minh when America was bombing Hanoi. I will just give you a little story, which I've not made public there, which made me assure that America could never whoop these people. The Vietnamese, I want to tell you, are some beautiful people. You must understand, any people who can organize themselves with such determination to go up against America, confident that they can destroy it, have to be some beautiful people. We said, power begins on the level of conception. The Vietnamese conceived that they can defeat America, and they defeated America. Power begins on the level of conception. When I was there, I asked the Vietnamese to give me work on United Front. Of course, before I went there, I had read just about everything I could read on the Vietnamese Revolution. And one of the things that caught my attention and attracted my attention was the Vietnamese were able to form a united front of all sector and all factions to form a united front against the Japanese, against the French, and against the Americans. I recognized that this is what was lacking in our people. In my early days in STIC in Mississippi, STIC was able to force an organization called COFO, Confederation of Federated Organizations. We had in its SNCC the NAACP, the Urban League, CORE, and SCLC. Where we're in Mississippi, NAACP did not do very much work. They had some very strong organizers, such as Brother Edgar Mevers, but they themselves didn't have a lot of people there. Neither did the Urban League. SCLC did not have too many people. The ground was occupied mainly by SNCC and some core field secretaries in the southern part of the state. But we decided this COFO, Council of Federated Organization, was necessary to present a united front against the forces of racism in Mississippi. Thus, this aspect of a united front has plagued me from my youth. It's a necessity. The Vietnamese, I said, are very beautiful people. They brought out all the documents I wanted. We were sitting upstairs in a little room. A comrade there who spoke English had the report. He was reading. And comrade, after we collected the students, now we were moving to the intelligentsia. And just as he said that, the siren went off. You know. So he looked at me and said, comrade, the Americans are coming to bomb. We must go to the shelter. Let's go. You know, the Vietnamese are very small people in stature. I look like a gigantic African going with them to the shelter. And they have these very small shelters. You know, they just walk in on, I have to crawl in on my stomach. But the comrade comes, I pay no attention to them, I go in the shelter, it's a small shelter, we sit down, he looks, he said, comrade, are you okay? I said, I'm fine, you know, I'm cool, let's get it on. So he said, everybody's fine? We said, fine. I didn't even know he had the paper with him. He pulled the paper out. He said, and comrade, the problem with the intelligences was such. He's reading the program. If planes are coming, you hear them, they bomb. So they drop a bomb maybe about a block from where we are. The dust from the shelter falls on the paper. And comrade, after that... So what? Blew my mind. I said, well, America gonna mess with these people? Poof. Poof. The Vietnamese gave me all of the instructions and information that I required on the building of a united front. When I came back to the United States, there was only one burning issue on my mind. Create a united front. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee assigned me to Washington, D.C. I went to school in Washington, D.C. at Howard University. I broke my tooth on struggle in Washington, D.C. I know the city. My job was to organize an African United Front. Thanks to the work that the Vietnamese had shared with me, thanks to the understanding, we were able to create inside of Washington, D.C., before the enemy knew what was happening, an African United Front that brought every organization in D.C. into it. Marion Barry was part of it. Fauntleroy was part of it. There's no African in Washington, D.C. today who's anybody that was not part of that united front. And we had it so well organized and so properly structured that when the police killed a young man, it was Fauntleroy who read our press statement which said, this young man committed justifiable homicide. A united front then was clear to me. Of course, when I left for Africa, they divided the united front. You know how they did it very easily. Brother wrote me and said, after you left, a white man came and said, oh, when you all started this front, I didn't understand it. I thought it was anti-white. Now I see something good. I want to help you all. So we want to give you all some money. That was it. Poof. Poof. It was finished. That's why we always insisted that an African United Front must be financed only by Africans. In 1969, the All-African People's Revolutionary Party gave me the task of organizing an African United Front in the United States of America with the leadership here. Since 1969, without stop to 1994, this has been a task which I have taken seriously. And every time, as Africa is our weakness, that we have come close to having a united front, outside forces always step in to create divisions, and these outside forces are always Zionist forces. Always. Always. Your chairperson is here. Ask him. As late as November of this year, on behalf of my party, the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, carrying out my task for United Front, I sent letters to Dr. Ben Chavis. I sent letters to Jesse Jackson. The same letter I sent to Jesse Jackson, I sent to Minister Louis Farrakhan. I also sent letters to Johnny Jacobs of the Urban League, and I sent letters to Kwame of the caucus. Your chairperson has copies of all of these letters, because when we met with him in February last year, he will tell you, we discussed only one issue. Brother, we want a united front. Brother, we don't care what we got to do, we want this united front. Your chairperson, on your behalf, promised us that he would have it to us soon. We thanked him. But we've had experience with this. At least he was happy to report today that, brother, I know it took some time, but last Wednesday we got going. This race is not a race for the swift. It is for he who endureth to the end. Your chairperson will share with you the information we sent him. Attached to the two letters were two documents. One that went back to 1972, when we had gathered together all the leadership. Roy Wilkins was alive at that time. Vernon Jordan was alive at that time. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was alive at that time. Minister Louis Farrakhan would serve as his representative. We had Jesse Jackson. We had everybody. And 3 days before the meeting came, Zionism launched an attack and destroyed the entire meeting. He has the documents. We also sent him another document, one written in 1982, a letter signed by Johnny Jacobs and Minister Louis Farrakhan. I took Minister Louis Farrakhan to Johnny Jacobs' office in New York here. It was the first time they met each other. Introduced after much discussion with Johnny Jacobs. I would go there by myself, sit, talk with him. I would call him up, speak with him. I call up Farrakhan. I call them all up, speak with him. Because all I want is a symbol of unity among our people. If we can't get nothing else except that, give the people a symbol of unity. I went to Africa. I want to tell you, I was overjoyed. Do you know that I had in my hand a letter calling for a united front signed by Johnny Jacobs and Minister Louis Farrakhan? Your chairperson has the facts in his hand. He has the documents. I was ecstatic. Before I could even touch down in Africa, Jesse Jackson announced that he was going to run for President of the United States. Of course, this news did not make us happy, but we saw a good point. This would be better. Now we can use all the forces to get the united front. Of course, we know the enemy never sleeps. In the South, an old woman once said to me when I first said, she said, son, you look mad. I said, yes, ma'am, I'm mad. She said, son, you look like you want to kill. I said, ma'am, I want to kill him. She said, you really want to get him, son? I said, ma'am, I want to get him. She said, son, if you want to get these white folk, you got to stay up all night and get up early in the morning, because they don't sleep. They don't sleep. Many, and I will spend many more. Many more. Jesse Jackson announced this. I wrote to Minister Farrakhan quickly. He came to suggest certain ideas. Minister Farrakhan I've known for over 3 decades. I know the minister well. I know his thinking. I know his movements. That's my job. The minister had already made up his mind. But you know, Minister Farrakhan is a very polite man when he comes to deal with you in his diplomatic effort. Ah, Brother Kwame. Yes, beloved minister. Said, oh, I have a little problem, and you know, I think that you are the most politically astute person among... You know he plays the violin. You know he plays the violin. Oh, he just built me up there. I said, where are you coming from? He said, Brother Jesse Jackson has a serious problem. I said, yes, because I tell you the truth. When Jesse announced that he was going to run, I just said, they going to pop him. I said, well, if that's what he want to go for, that's him.
Everybody decided what they want to go for. So I just figured they would get rid of him. It was only later, upon more profound analysis, that I see I made a mistake. I came to see quickly, oh no, the FBI and the CIA have to protect Jesse. Because if Jesse Jackson gets wasted for this vote thing, which King was pushing us to, no African going to vote in this country, it's over. I understood instinctively, quickly, I made a mistake. They're not going to kill him. Minister Farrakhan came to see me. He said, Jesse Jackson's in a lot of problems. I said, yeah, it looked like he in it. He said, you know, somebody might kill him. I said, they certainly will. He said, well, you don't seem to be in no problem about it. I said, well, that's his choice, you know. They might kill you. They might kill me. You've decided they're going to kill you for Nation of Islam. I decided they're going to kill me for African Revolution. I don't see no problem with it. He decided they're going to kill him for president. That's his choice. That's his choice. It's his choice. In revolution, there is no sentiment at all. Anyway in life, you make sentiment, you make mistakes. I'm divorced twice, all of them because I made mistakes around sentiments. So you can't do that. You have to be clear. Clear. Well, listen, that I can't make mistakes out there on sentiments. Maybe in the house I can do, but out there. Yes. Mr. Farrakhan said, well, we think he's in trouble and I want to help him. I said, well, that's your choice. He said, I'm going to send the Nation of Islam, the FOI, to protect him. What do you think about that? I said, that's your decision. Well, obviously, when I said that, he knew what I meant. He said, well, you don't seem like I said, well, that's your decision, Minister. That's what you wanted to do it. He said, well, what about you? If you were being attacked, would you want the FOI to protect you? I reminded the minister, Minister Louis Farrakhan, when I was nominated chairperson of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the first public meeting I had with any leader was with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I was 26 years old. I can never forget that meeting. Throughout that entire meeting, I was just a young man. First of all, everybody's mind was blown. Because the first person we met with was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We went there for two reasons. Strengthen nationalism, strengthen the position against the war in Vietnam. Because the Nation of Islam had taken those positions long before others. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad went to jail in World War II. Went to jail. Others went to jail too. Bayard Rustin went to jail as a pacifist. But when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came, he told him, I ain't fighting in the devil's army. That's all he said. He ain't said nothing else. I ain't fighting in the devil's army. So I know that if the Honorable Elijah Muhammad went to jail for not fighting in the devil's army, none of his followers was going to fight in the devil's army. I knew that. So that was our only position. We had a very beautiful meeting. Muhammad Ali was there that meeting. I mean, I'll never forget that day. I spent the entire day in the house of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. At the end of the day, when we were leaving, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad sat down at the table. He said, son, young man, he said, the devil wants you. I said, yes, sir. He said, son, the devil want to kill you. I said, yes, sir. He said, son, the devil going to try and kill you. I said, yes, sir. He said, son, I'm worried about you. I said, oh, thank you, sir, but we're capable. He said, son, I'm going to give an order for the FOI to protect you anywhere you go. I said, thank you, sir. And I felt very humble. Thank you, sir. You know, but that's very kind of you, sir. But you know, sir, I move a lot. You have a lot to do. The FOI is busy. They have so much to do. And I went through all this whole spiel, you know. When I was finished, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad looked at me and said, son, I wasn't asking you. Anyone can tell you, anywhere I go, any FOI person is there, he must protect me. I reminded Minister Louis Farrakhan of that. Matter of fact, I just told him, I got one up on Jesse. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave the order for me. You give it for Jesse. So he said, well, you know, Jesse's in trouble. Don't you think, if you're in trouble, I said, listen, I just told you the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has given that to me. And I will promise you this. The FOI can protect me for everything. But one thing they will never have to protect me for is trying to be President of the United States of America. But you know, Minister Farrakhan is a minister, has some sentimentality, etc., etc. So he made the decision to send the FOI. I told him as we were leaving, I said, the decision you made is one for which I must congratulate you. Certainly it is one made in the best of brotherly spirit. I said, my only problem is that when the Zionists pull the bullet, whether you and Jesse will be on the same side of the barracks or not. The only words I said to him. We left. I didn't even have to wait before you know what happened. Got a religion, this religion, that religion, and before it's over, not over did Jesse attack him, but even Johnny Jacobs wrote letters attacking the minister, Farrakhan. You could imagine how disgusted I was once again. After all these years of work, going to meet with Jacobs, meeting with Farrakhan, holding hands with Jesse, getting all of them, bringing them together, have my program ready to bring a united front, these Zionist pigs came once again and destroyed it. This letter, which I wrote, and your chairperson has documented proof, in the very letter to all of them, I said, I've been working with this program for the All-African People's Revolutionary Party since 1969. Before then, I worked on it for SNCC. I have many years of experience in this work. Every time that we bring our people together, it is always destroyed by Zionist forces. I wrote the letter in November. When I got into the country last week, guess what I heard on the radio? Guess what I heard? The All-African People's Revolutionary Party has attacked Zionism from its very inception. This itself follows for me, myself, politically from my work. As you know, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee condemned them since 1967 in the war against Egypt, saying very simply, Egypt is Africa, you touch one square inch of Africa, we don't care who you are, we are against you, we are against Zionism. Simple as that. It was as simple as that. You notice that we say Zionism. We are very clear here. We tell the entire world we are anti-Zionist. We cannot be anti-Judaic, not us. We know Africa gave Judaism to the world. We know that. If you do not know it, go and read a book by Sigmund Freud. That's who I'm sending you to. Not to Dr. Ben. I'm sending you to Sigmund Freud. Moses and Monotheism, his last book. You'll read it. But you don't even have to read it. All you have to know is Africa was the first to give monotheism, belief in one God, to the world. Thus, any religion, being the first religion, chronologically speaking, to preach monotheism, can only come out of Africa. In Palestine at that time, they were worshiping idols and would do so until the prophet, peace be upon his name, came to liberate them and give them monotheism in the form of Islam. Consequently, Palestine could not produce Judaism at that time. Only Africa could. These are scientific facts, based clearly in history. We said we're never anti-Jewish. You cannot be. I'm a conscious African. Matter of fact, when they get mad with you, I tell them, hey, you better respect me, Jack. I give you your religion. Yes. I tell them the truth with all arrogance. You better respect me, Jack. I gave you your religion. Without me, you'd still be wandering in the wilderness. They will say that we're anti-Semitic. This is stupidity. The word Semite is a scientific word which precisely gives biological specification to a group of people. Yasser Arafat is a Semite. The All-African People's Revolutionary Party gives unconditional support to the Palestine Liberation Organization. We support the Palestinians. How can we be anti-Semitic? Shamir is not a Semite. He's a Cossacoid. Yeah. So they shouldn't say we anti-Semitic. They should say we anti-Cossacoid. At least they should be logical. We are anti-Zionist. When you hear them insulting Farrakhan, do not think they're insulting Farrakhan. You must know your people's culture. Your people are a very religious people, more religious than most. Anyway, in America, Africans are the most religious people in America. There's no question here. This is the culture of the Africans. They're very religious. No African group of people will sit and listen to anyone insult any religion without walking out on them. Thus, when they condemn Farrakhan, saying that he comes before the people and screams anti-Jewish epithets and the people go wild, they're not condemning Farrakhan. They're showing the contempt they have for us and our culture. They know absolutely nothing about it. No person will have a hearing from these people who come to condemn any religion. These people love religion. It's in their blood. Look at Africa's contributions to religion. It gave Judaism to the world. It stabilized Christianity for the world. It saved Islam for the world. How can an African not through his culture understand to have respect for religions? They come everywhere. The trouble with Zionism is that it has nothing to do with religion. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The founder of Zionism was a man called Theodor Herzl, H-E-R-Z-L. In his diaries, he says, I'm an atheist. An atheist isn't someone who doesn't believe in God. An atheist is someone who denies the existence of God. Now dig this. Here's a man who tells me there ain't no God, and he gonna come and lead the people back to the land which God promised them. If you don't know, you become confused, you know. You really become confused. I'm not telling you, take it from me. Theodore Herzl has books. The Jewish State, his diaries. Read them. Because these movements affect your people. They destroy unity every time you try to come together. If you understand Jewish theology, and everyone must, it simply says that God chose the Jews for whatever reason. Of course, you must understand this concept of chosen. God doesn't choose anybody. You choose God. You choose God. Even those who say they're Christians, God didn't choose them. It's only when they truly follow God's path are they God's chosen. They say that God chose them and God promised to give them the land. We have no disagreement with that. But let me tell you something. My mother used to tell me from the time I'm small, God is no respecter of persons. And my mama told me that. So if God promised you something, you better wait until God decides to give it to you. In the South, the old folk used to say, God don't come when you call him. He come when you need him. So don't you worry, he come. Now, if God promised them the land, how are they going to come and play God and decide to take the land with American guns by shooting the Palestinians? This is nothing but the devil in disguise. Zionists understand that the biggest threat they have in this country comes from the African masses. They understand this. That's why every time we get together, they come. And look at the contempt they have for us. Do you hear them calling up somebody and saying, Clinton said such and such, tell them, blast him? Do they ever call up the mafia and say the mafia, so-and-so made an anti-Jewish statement, condemn him? Do they call up anybody else? All over the country, they make anti-Jewish statements everywhere. This country is anti-Jewish to its core. They never call up anybody. But every time they want to cause some trouble with us, you know, so-and-so said such and such. You need to condemn him just when we're about to unite. And what happens? They come out and they condemn. The Anti-Defamation League, it has been proven, has been spying on all African organizations in this country, starting with Martin Luther King Jr. The hero of Jesse Jackson, we haven't heard Jesse condemn the Anti-Defamation League for spying on Martin Luther King. No one has called on him to do that. It's time that we call on Jesse to condemn the Anti-Defamation League for spying on the African community. All we're asking for is equal time. We ain't asking for nothing else. The Anti-Defamation League ain't nothing but a bunch of spiers and liars. That's all they've ever been. They spy on lying everybody, and they've been caught red-handed spying. You must read these things because they affect your people. They have come now to wipe out completely all the files that they have, and they were spying on none other than Martin Luther King Jr. Jesse has a responsibility here, if he's objective, to condemn them. The Zionist movement has contempt for us. That's why they interfere into the internal affairs of our movement anytime, every time, without the slightest question. I remember when Mandela was getting ready to come to the United States of America. These Zionists sent a group to meet him in Switzerland, in Geneva, to sit down and tell him what he should say and what he should not say about Zionism. Is this not nothing but contempt? Could they go to any other leader? Can they go to the head of the mafia? Can they go to tell them they cannot do that? Why do they do it to us? Because they have nothing but contempt for us. Zionism is racism to the core. To the core. We are going to build an African united front in this country. Our efforts started since 1967. What it took us 2 weeks to do in 1967, in 1994 we do in 2 hours. We're going to have an African United Front in this country. The pressure of the masses of our people are going to insist and are going to make the leaders sit down, even if for symbolic unity, but they will force them to do it. And you old activists, you old strugglers have a job to do, that you must at least try and get your people a vision of unity before they die. You must demand that these leaders sit down with each other, irrespective of their ideological persuasion. A united front, an African united front, is what we will have. Anyway, for us of the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, we are not tired. We will never get tired. Anytime we thinks about getting tired, we thinks about our grandparents who worked from Kansi to Kansi and kept on going, and we gets all the energy we need. Oh. We want to conclude with 2 points. One is the point of violence. You must understand this point very carefully. Violence has 2 points: reactionary violence and revolutionary violence. Everyone knows that the Africans in this country are oppressed through violence. When the police shoot down a brother, when the police shoots a 68-year-old woman, when the police shoots a 7-year-old boy anywhere in this country, it is for one reason alone: to intimidate the population, to keep them in line. This is violence. America's a racist, capitalist country. Everybody knows that. I cannot, as an African, in good conscience, advocate to my people that any one of them put down any gun in a racist, capitalist state. When I served as honorary Prime Minister of the Black Panther Party, and Brother David Brothers, whom I just introduced to you as a Central Committee member of the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, was the chairperson of the New York chapter of the Black Panther Party for years. Yeah, Rob. Yeah. Don't let the press fool you. They ain't seen the real revolutionaries yet. That brother ain't number 75 years young, but he got more experience, you understand, than a whole lot of people who've been dead for centuries. He was chairperson of the Black Panther Party in New York. He will tell you. We had more guns in the Black Panther Party chapter in New York alone than all the gangs in New York have today. I'm speaking to you facts. And yet, nobody was getting shot in the African community by these guns. It is not guns that kill people, it is people that kill people. And they don't kill you with guns, they can kill you with poison. The problem is not guns, the problem is capitalism. The problem is a value which says that you can get